The next speaker we have is, when you talk about redefining platforms and industries, he's redefining what it means to be a public speaker, which obviously makes me very nervous to even bring him up here, because I know he's secretly judging me. He has worked with everyone from Princess Diana to Sting to James Cameron. He's actually one of the most sought after speech coaches in the United States. He's coached, and this is actually true, he's coached 7 presidential candidates in 5 countries, so he knows a thing or two about public speaking and where it's going. So, Richard Greene, come on up. Thank you.
So, let's give a big hand to Lori. Lori, hold on. How'd she do? How has she been doing consistently? She's fantastic. So it is such an honor and a pleasure to be here in Sweden. Thank you so much, Ola, for inviting me to come all the way from Los Angeles and getting a little bit of sun even today. So I want to talk about more than just public speaking. I want to talk about a whole bunch of things that will redefine, hopefully, your world and allow you to actually literally think outside the box in things that you've never thought there was even a box for. So it all started here. That, by the way, is a record player for those young people in the audience. And that was me about 4 or 5 or 6 years old. And that's where my redefinition of the universe and the world started. Because I distinctly remember being 6 years old, lying in my bed by myself in New Jersey, and asking myself the following question. You tell me whether you've asked this. Where did I come from, right? So my mom and my dad, where did they come from? Their parents, where did they come from? Their parents, where did they come from? Their parents. Where did the very first human beings come from? Okay, we'll say Adam and Eve. Where did they come from? They came from God. And then I started to heat up and sweat. And it's like, well, hold on, but where did God come from? How many of you have ever asked yourself that question? No one? Yes. Okay, good. So I go, okay, it came from a thought. Well, where did that thought come from? It came from a grain of sand. Where did that grain of sand come from? Got it? So I just kept trying to figure out how to figure out things. And so I dedicated my life from that point at the age of 6 to trying to figure it out. So here's where I am so far, a few years later. So life. First of all, I love that picture on the left. That's who we are. We are literally stardust. Literally, literally stardust. Every single one of us used to be that, a star, at some point millions or billions of years ago. Everything you see, taste, touch, smell comes from an exploded star, right? And there's lots of them. This is a recent Hubble photo of galaxies. Every single dot there is a galaxy. Now, it used to be estimated that there were about 100 billion galaxies in the universe. That was just increased by 10 to 20-fold in the last couple of weeks. So there are from 1 trillion to 2 trillion galaxies. Do you know how many stars there are in a galaxy? On average, 100 billion stars. So that's life. It's a pretty big deal. There's a lot going on, and there is no time, which is a whole nother conversation in and of itself. So my best definition, redefinition of what life is, what existence is by someone not related to me, Brian Greene, a professor of quantum physics, and he said that what this is, this whole thing is infinite universes, not just multiple universes or multiverses, infinite universes expanding infinitely. Pretty mind-blowing. Gives you a context, I think, to even put Donald Trump inside of. Okay, so public speaking. So I had the great pleasure of going to the very first seminar that Tony Robbins gave in the United States in 1983. And I was blown away by him, and I walk up to him and say, "You're one of the most amazing communicators I've ever seen. I think you're going to go..."
Not my friend.
Wow, really? Who is that robot? Where are you? I want to talk to you. I want to redefine you.
And that's the funny thing, because we can overrule robots. So keep on going.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I want my 11 seconds back. Anyway, so I walked up to Tony. I said, you know, you're amazing. You're going to change the world. I want to help you do that. And so I became his lawyer. And then he moved into my law office, and we stayed up till 2, 3 every morning brainstorming and helping him create his universe. And I decided what he was doing with neuro-linguistic programming and communication and motivational speaking was way more cool and way more gratifying than practicing law. So I quit my law practice, traveled around the world for a while, came back and dedicated myself to taking what I had learned from Tony Robbins and neuro-linguistic programming and redefining public speaking. Because before I started, public speaking was something that was perceived as a performance. How many of you have ever heard that to be a great public speaker, you need to look over the heads of the audience or even imagine them being naked? Raise your hand. Okay, so depending on the audience, that could be a horrible or an interesting thing, but certainly distracting. But the truth is, it's not true. What great public speakers do, whether you're looking at Martin Luther King or John F. Kennedy or Winston Churchill, or even Donald Trump, he's a very effective communicator. That's how he got where he got, sadly. A conversation from the heart, not just from the head. So no matter how much information you have, it's got to be from the heart about something you are authentically passionate about. You have to be totally passionate about anything that you're talking about. Because if it's boring to you, who else is it going to be boring to? It's going to be boring to the audience. Why are you doing it? In order to help others or the whole world. Leonardo DiCaprio gets up at the Oscars to talk about climate change, not for himself, but to help the world. That's what public speaking is all about, and it's incredibly exciting. You shouldn't be afraid of it. We're going to do a workshop on that at 2 o'clock here today. Okay, so then I said, okay, what is God? God is the source. This idea of God is the source of so much struggle, so much tension, so much conflict in the world. How many of you believe in God? Okay, how many don't believe in God? Okay, I thought so. So I wrote a piece in the Huffington Post called God for Atheists. And that's what we're going to talk about. I want you to have a new definition of God because the old ones, I think, are just not accurate. They were devised at times before we had telescopes and before we had microscopes. We had no idea what the world was, so we made stuff up. Now we do. And my hero is Albert Einstein. So I wrote a book on public speaking that included a speech by Albert Einstein in 2002, and I became fixated on E equals MC squared. I even got a little sticker, put it on the dashboard of my car, and I kept meditating on it. There's something here. There's a code here. I've got to crack the code. What does E equals MC squared mean? It's got to mean something beyond what it means. It's actually the definition of God. So I wrote a book called E equals MC squared and the New Definition of God. And the reason that I did that is because what Einstein figured out was that energy, right, is the same as matter. Matter and energy are the same things, and you can measure how much energy is inside of any unit of matter, right, according to this formula, by multiplying it by c, the speed of light squared. So one absolutely scientific definition of God, or the universe, if you don't want to call it God, or the creator, is what is the quantity of energy in the universe? Because that would be some measure of what God or the creator is. And guess what? According to Einstein's formula, every single one of you has at least 65 or 70,000 atomic bombs worth of energy. The atomic bomb that exploded in Hiroshima and Nagasaki had approximately 1 gram of matter that was turned back into energy. So here's the Big Bang, 13.8 billion years ago. Energy, boom, this flash of light turning into all the matter in the universe. An atomic bomb is you take the matter, right, that came from the Big Bang, and you turn it back into energy. It only takes 1 gram of matter to create an atomic bomb. So one measure of what God is in a mathematical sense is you multiply all the grams of matter in the universe, which is a lot. Think about it. If you're 65 or 70,000 atomic bombs worth of energy, multiply that times 1 trillion galaxies, and then you've got some measure of what God is. So it's a quantity of energy. And when you tune into that quantity of energy and the trillion galaxies and the intricacy of how even the human body works and all of the magic that is in the universe, the experience of God, in my opinion, that is more true than our conceptual idea of God as Jesus or Allah or whatever, the experience of that is awe. How many of you have ever been in awe? Okay? In my experience, in my feeling, you have experienced yourself God. And my definition for God is all that is. That's it. Just all that is God. Now, and here on the right, you'll see, is the way I'd like for us to picture God. Because that thing in the middle is literally something called the Helix Nebula, the eye of God. And a nebula is a second or third or fourth generation creator of life. A star explodes, creates a nebula, all those gases, very pretty colors. Then over thousands or millions of years, it condenses to create what? Additional stars, additional planets. It is a creator of life, and I think from a scientific standpoint, we want to do that. And going back 5,000 years, how many of you know what that symbol is over there? The Ohm sign. Right? Look at it. It's E equals mc squared 5,000 years before Einstein. Can you see the backwards E and then kind of an equal sign, and then you turn the E sideways? It's an M, and then you see the C and you see the squared. 5,000 years before Einstein. Pretty trippy, I think. Okay, God, the creator of, you know what? I'm going to skip that. We can talk about it later. So at the end of our physical life, even though there is no time, we die. Now, how many believe in life after death of some kind? How many don't believe in life after death? Oh, this is so great. I'm so glad. So my father, at the age of 86, almost 87, died last January. And it's a really powerful experience. And within a week after he died, he communicated, I believe, very strongly to me in 3 unbelievable, unscientific, it's impossible, mathematically impossible, the synchronicities that happened in that week after he died. So I wrote a piece in the Huffington Post, and you can all look it up. It's how my father proved he was still very much alive 1 week after his death. If you give me any credibility and you read this article and those 3 synchronicities, it'll blow your mind and cause you to think, which is what I want you to do, outside the box, and perhaps a new definition of death. And the reason that I believe that death is different than what most people think is because of science, again, the first law of thermodynamics, that energy can be neither created nor destroyed. There is no time. That proves it right there. We're not born, we don't die. Got it? Energy can be neither created nor destroyed. Everything that exists has always existed and will always exist. And in fact, I believe we are spiritual beings on Earth having a human experience, not human beings trying to have a spiritual experience. Politics. Okay, we could talk a lot about this. I'm going to talk a little bit about it with Lori in a minute. But I want you to know that the new definition of politics is not to vote for people. Look at what happened in America. We had 2 people no one wanted to vote for. Politics is about voting for what the end result is. Vote for a bill, a piece of legislation, a particular policy, and then reverse engineer that to find the magic number of people that can make that law, that bill, become a reality. In the United States, the magic number of America is 279. The magic number of Sweden is 175 because you have 349 people in your Reichstag. So the majority is 175. So don't complain about politics, just find the 175 people that'll give you what you want, okay? Billify, related to bills, don't vilify, okay? Solution to climate change, I'm not going to go through it, but basically all we have to do is incorporate the true, full costs of what we do when we burn fossil fuels, when we eat meat, because of the animals that emit the methane that we should be paying for. Meat should cost more than it does because it should factor in the climate change impact. Fossil fuels should cost more than they do. Once we do that, we will fix climate change. Need to talk to Donald Trump about that. I'll put that on my to-do list. Okay, sex. We're almost out of time, but I want to make sure that we have that. That image, I wrote a book which I'm almost done with actually, called the Tantric Sex Diet. Because I think we need to redefine sex. It's the most powerful human urge that we have, and we really, in my opinion, have misdiagnosed it and misdefined it. So right there on the right is the chakra system. How many of you know about chakras? Raise your hand if you know about chakras, okay? You know what? I'm going to send you all through Ola a copy of my book, because I think you'll enjoy that. So sex, in my opinion, is primarily a spiritual experience, and sexual energy is designed to open not just the genitals, but to travel up the chakra system to open up the heart and all the way up to the crown chakra to connect with the entire universe. I have had that experience, practiced Tantra for 25 years. It's, I think, the most useful thing anyone could possibly learn if you're interested in enhancing your relationship with someone that you love or someone you don't. And I'll send you a copy of this. Normal sex versus tantric sex, we don't have time to go into all of that, but you can see there are a lot of really cool things. I'm happy to send this information to you. But because we're almost out of time here, the most important definition, the most important redefinition is your life. Why are you here? 3 most important questions in the universe that I thought about when I was 6 years old in my bed in New Jersey was, who am I? Why am I here? And what is God in the universe, right? So what I am absolutely certain of, is that we, each and every one of us, has a purpose. And you know why? Because you are a once-in-a-universe experience. When you die, that thing called whoever you are is gone forever. You could take your DNA, you could reproduce it, but you then would have a human being that is growing up at a different time with different parents and different time in history and different influences, and possibly also a different soul. So that thing that is going to die within the next 50 or 100 years, that is who you are sitting in this room, that will never, ever, in a trillion galaxies, in all of time eternal, will never happen again. Think about that. Never. That means you are unique. You are disruptive inherently. You are precious. You are enormously important to contribute that which you uniquely are. Your DNA, the time in history, the lifetime of experiences that you have had. That is something that in the East is called Dharma. We are each here to contribute the uniqueness of who we are and to make a difference. That is our work in the world. That is our new definition of who we are. And if I could have helped in any tiny bit in these 15 minutes, it would be an enormous honor. And thank you so much for inviting me.